Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another week of Wind Against Tide. Extra special episode tonight. We've got our very first in house guest in Joey's Room of Delights, as we like to call it. The fish, the fish tankery. There's been some pretty serious stuff going on in not only in recreational fishing, but I suppose with the environment in general. And Joe and I weren't all over it, you might say, but we knew that there was a man who knew all about the subject, and we're talking about offshore wind turbines right now, guys. Anyway, we've got Justin Church from Just Your Average Fishos. He's come into the studio with us. He's all read up on the subject of offshore wind turbines, and he's going to fill us in. How you going, Justin? Thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much for allowing me to join the show, gents.
Good on you, Justin.
I feel
Thanks
like
for coming in.
I'm actually in the auspices of game fishing legends here. Maybe not Joey, but Dave.
Excuse me. I've tagged plenty of hundreds of kilos of tuners.
You're sitting next to one of the best boat food makers in the history of the world.
He manages the oven well. No, it's fantastic. Thank you very much for having me on. I think it's a great opportunity for us to talk about these relevant environmental issues, probably add a little bit of balance. So, I think, how do you want to kick off, mate?
Well, me and Joe have mentioned it a few times recently. I mean, from the outside looking in, it looks like there's going to be quite a lot of impact to our marine environments. So for those that aren't aware, there's a bunch of large wind farms, so wind turbine fields that are in the works for southwest coast around Portland, Wilson's Prom, and was there some off Gippsland as well, Justin?
Yeah. So the actual Gippsland region extends south of Wilson's Prom on the western side.
Yep.
And then on the eastern side, you have the Gippsland primary area, which goes from basically McLaughlin's Beach, I'm pretty sure it's called, up to almost near Lake's entrance. So pretty big area. That's a very big one. So all those areas combined, it's about 15,000 square kilometres. And opposed to about 5,000, which is a longer but narrower stretch along the Portland coast. So basically going from Warrnambool up to Port Mac.
Yeah. So for me and Joe as game fishermen, our immediate thought is boo wind turbines, because they're putting them right on the migratory path of big bluefin and various other species. So to us, we're only worried about ourselves as usual and our access into those fishing areas. But the broader issue is obviously the impact it'll have on the environment, the local economies to these towns. I mean, Portland thrives off the tuna fishing industry, the wreck fishing industry. And so me and Joe basically wanted to get yourself in, Justin, because I know that recently you've done a lot of research into it. In fact, you've had a few meetings with some of the companies that are involved with these proposed wind farms.
Yep, yeah, absolutely. So how it all kicked off for me was that Matty Hunt, good friend, rang me, I don't know, probably 8 to 10 weeks ago and said, this is a thing. And I'd obviously looked at it myself, but didn't really understand too much about it other than that the recreational fishing community was starting to get loud saying, hey, this could be impacting. And Matty's a very passionate guy, but he sort of said, look, how can you help me in understanding this and maybe add a bit of balance to it? So over the course of the last sort of 8 to 10 weeks, probably read close to 30,000 pages of documentation.
Wow. Yep.
You're a good reader.
Yeah, try to. I'm working during the day, but yeah, a lot of late nights. I've spoken to the fisheries or fishing liaison manager of Star of the South, their PR officer, and I've exchanged a few emails, and also spoken to some other members of government just to try and understand what's really going on. So maybe if we take a little bit of a step back, people understand what offshore wind farms are, right? These great big turbine things in the ocean that generate electricity. But I think it's fair to sort of start at the start and go, okay, why does Australia need them, or why are they investing in these areas? So obviously it fits the green agenda, and I'm not going to I'm not an engineer, I'm not a wind turbine or a geological engineer or anything like that. I'm just an average fisho, right? So, but the green agenda is coming. It's very important, and we need to make these changes for the longevity of our environment, so we don't keep pumping stuff into the air, whatever. And I can't determine whether that wind turbines are a good thing to do or not. but I think that they're coming, and Australia it's surrounded by pristine coastline, so therefore the prevailing winds are very good to power these things.
Yeah, it's so windy down those far east and far west coasts. Like Dave and I just forever constantly complaining about the wind.
That's exactly right. So obviously, really good source of electricity, effectively due to those prevailing winds. Our oceans are vast, so there's a substantial amount of interest from these offshore wind sort of turbine producers and investors. And it fits a green agenda, and Australia is on that green agenda on a worldwide scale at the moment.
And I'll just launch into a question: Is the wind that's going to be produced there, is that for general consumers? Is it for corporations or what?
Go straight into the grid, Joey. And like, it's pretty funny, if you are fishing off Woolamai for the old summertime tuna, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you'll see the wind farms over there, and it won't be a very windy day, and you'll go, oh, there's only a few turning. The rest must be broken, or what good are they serving? The actual myth is that they're broken and so forth. They're not actually broken, but what it is that there's not a lot of demand at that time. So these wind farms will pump a load of electricity into the grid, but you can't store it. So you only need to pump in what the demand is. So if those wind farms aren't turning, it's not because they're all broken. It's that the demand that they can feed in isn't warranted.
Oh, yeah, I was just about to say that because obviously the grid has to be able to accept that kind of power.
Yep.
I'm a real estate agent during the week. I was talking to a real estate agent today at a training session. Apparently, in One Turner can't have so much solar there because the grid can't.
Can't handle it. Yeah, that's exactly right. And our demand for power is getting more. Electric vehicles, homes, solar power, all that sort of stuff. I think that as they want to shut down, the principal producer of electricity for our state, which is obviously Loy Yang Power, because it's burning brown coal and dark coal. The wind turbines and the wind turbine areas can produce, like 130 of that's proposed in one area of Gippsland is saying they can do 2.2 gigawatts, which is massive. So that there's some of the interesting points that why it's sort of happening and why Australia and obviously the Albanese government are really looking at this. However, to add some balance, these things are insanely costly. The construction projects are very, very expensive. They're more costly to maintain than on ground wind farms because obviously you've got to have these specialised boats and weather windows, and then people that are paid awesome sums of money to go on these boats and be the engineers and so forth. I think the thing that we're all talking here about is what is the known impact to fishing, because there is some. There genuinely is impact to fishing because you can't have these things mounted into the sea and not only have impact about their positioning and what they and how they're mounting them, but also about the usage to us recreational and commercial fishermen.
Can I ask how far down the line is actually this proposal for the southwest coast?
Yep.
So we're talking about how far is this down the line? Is it early stages or is it close to becoming a real decision? Or what?
Glad you asked. So I think so a load of things have happened in the last few years. So we've seen the introduction by government of various different acts, so pieces of legislation. So we've got the Offshore Petroleum and Greenhouse Gas Storage Act, the Offshore Electricity Infrastructure Act, and that's the big one, because that one talks about not restricting usage per se to users of water, which recreational and commercial fishermen are, obviously. We have NOPSEMA, which is effectively the Australian Offshore Energy Regulator. So they're more about the management safely of the infrastructure once it's there, and that the companies are doing the right thing and no environmental concerns as they're in operation. And then you have the Australian Department of Climate Change and Energy. And basically, if we just step back one more step to your question, is Star of the South, which is probably the most advanced offshore energy wind provider or proponent so far in Gippsland.
Where are their stations?
So we'll show you that in a sec.
Yeah, cool.
But there are, and well, Dave will get that up in a sec. But actually, why don't we just get it up now and we'll show.
I'm on the Star of the South website currently. Is there anything of interest on there?
We'll go to the photos, Dave, if we can. We'll kick off with photo number one, and we'll show that one.
Which region was photo number one?
Gippsland.
Yes. Region. Here we go. Oh no, that's the wrong one. That one.
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, do the other one. Do the other one first. Yeah. You had the first. That's it. That one. All right. So that is the declared offshore wind energy zone for Gippsland and the broader area of down south of Welshpool and stuff like that.
Wow.
So it sort of, as you can see, it's to the west side of Welshpool and all of the protected islands and marine parks around there. But then the declared zone basically goes, up of the island group and then east right up to virtually Lakes Entrance up there. Very, very big areas. This comprises about 15,000 square kilometres. So it's actually larger than the Warrnambool to Port Mac one, which is about 5,000 square kilometres. And this is the first declared, like government declared offshore wind zone, where then investors or potential companies can then apply to do exploration to understand where they could suitably have wind farms in those areas and understand what feasibility they have. And Star of the South is the first one that was issued effectively an exploration license, but they're now determining that to be called a feasibility license. So to come in, you as a company, you have to apply and put up the corporate structures and all your your environmental plans and bits and pieces. You effectively get a feasibility study. That means you can go research the area that you're proposing, and then you can then put in for effectively a construction license or an operation license. The average time, to your question, sorry, a long way to get there, about 6 to 10 years. And Star of the South is the most advanced and 3 years in. So ideally, they want to be sort of operational, I'd imagine, 2028 to 2030.
Wow, 6 to 10 years to set up one of these wind farms.
From go to woe, that's right. Yeah, so it's pretty massive. You go to picture 2, Dave.
Yep.
Would it be fair to say then we're just in the preliminary stages of this potentially going ahead?
Yeah, so there's a lot of noise and because there's a lot of interest. So this is obviously the south coast of Victoria proposed wind area. Now this is not a declared area. This is a proposed.
This is
area.
a proposal.
So this is a proposal, and what happens is the Minister of Environment, which is I think Chris Bowen, he will then officially under the Act declare this as an area. Once there's obviously suitable interest and they probably get some of the nuts and bolts of community assessment and stuff out of the way. Once they declare it an area, then they invite proposals from all of these offshore wind companies, and then they will propose, do their exploration, and then apply for construction. So it's a big process, and you got to jump through all of those acts. We're talking monumental structures for monumental money here.
So is there much known about the environmental impacts of these wind farms? Because this region off Portland is, for example, the biodiversity at sea there is absolutely incredible. I mean, you have migratory blue whales. One of I think it's one of the best places in the world to spot blue whales coming through. I know there's a massive gannet colony there. Fur seals, dolphins, you name it. Like obviously the fish life with tuna and that's just the pelagics. You've got all the demersals as well. Have we got any idea of the impact that these wind farms not only being installed, but when they're operating, what they could have on these areas? Because I know that these wind turbines, they hold, correct me if I'm wrong, about 14,000 or something litres of hydraulic oil to keep them lubricated. So, they blow a seal or something. Is all that oil ending up in the ocean?
Yeah. So again, I'm not an engineer, but yes, there can be failures. So fires or dropping oil. I don't know about 14,000 litres, but
I probably made that up. I'm going to Google it so I can't get sued.
Yeah, that's all right. No. Look, and I think what's important is that because Star of the South is the most advanced one, they're actually really critically engaged, not only with local community but also fishing community.
1,400 litres.
1,400. Well,
that's pretty close.
Yeah,
1 and 4
1/10.
and some zeros.
But yeah, that's true. It's not too much different than if you have these issues on land and the impact of gas oil rigs and stuff like that. And I don't want to be dismissive, but you're absolutely right that could happen.
Similar to a Mercury Blue Band chugging along, dropping oil in the ocean.
There's a fair few of those knocking around down that way. That's absolutely true. Yeah, I think that there is environmental impact, and we're sort of like jumping right ahead, absolutely there's fishing impact because you're effectively pile driving these things into the surface.
Mm.
I think there's a lot of concern and maybe a little bit of misconception around how these companies work out the appropriate areas and mapping of the seafloor. There's been a lot of discussion, particularly in that Warrnambool to Port Mac area, about what we call seismic blasting. And what seismic blasting is a boat with a huge array of cables coming out the back that pumps air down, and it's thought to do either damage to the seabed and also damage to fish species. But the picture that you've just got up there, Dave, is from the Star of the South, and effectively, and their communication, and you got to take it for what it's worth, is that their communication is that no, for any sort of offshore wind farm in the depths that they're working to, which my understanding is 20 to 40 meters, because if they've got to go, if they can't hit the floor in that sort of zone, and then they've got to put they drive the piles down 50 meters.
So this is setting up the foundations for the.
That's right. So
windmills.
yeah, so they've got to put these massive tubes in 50 meters into the ground. If it was too tall to then get them to the surface, and then you've got to understand the size of these things. They're 250 meters tall from bottom of the blade to the top of the blade. And one blade can weigh, depending on the megawattage of the actual unit, can weigh 40 tons. So these things are monolithic. Like that's almost the size of the Eureka Tower in Melbourne. Like we're talking massive structures, right? And so what they do is they go along and they take some soil samples, which is by the good old digger. So okay, that would have some impact, but very small for the area. A bunch of anchors in snapper season in Port Phillip would probably do worse damage than that. And they do a lot of effectively almost like sonar operating, like just giant sonar and boats and so forth.
Yep.
And they've also got a cone that penetrates the bottom. It's a very small cone. It penetrates the bottom and then works out the strength of the substrate and stuff like that. So there shouldn't. Star of the South hasn't done any seismic blasting and doesn't believe that seismic blasting should ever be done for their particular area in Gippsland, and doesn't think that it should be done down in Portland. But that's their opinion.
Is that got to do with what the sea floor is at Gippsland compared to what it could be down at the southwest coast, which is totally different?
Potentially. Look, I haven't read anything that said that anyone has to do seismic blasting down at the Portland one, but it doesn't mean that it won't happen. And then you've got to go into the assessment of what is the impact of seismic blasting. So I think a lot of people confuse seismic blasting and fracking on land to be similar things, but they're very, very different.
It's not fracking.
Yeah, it's not fracking. So, but seismic blasting can have impact. There's no doubt about that. But in this particular one, they go along, they map, they sound, they take some soil, and then they put these little sensors in as well to understand it. Because you can't actually mount, like people would think to hold these things in that you need to mount them on reef, that you can't actually mount them on reef. They don't want to mount them on reef. Too hard to pile drive into. So they're just pushing these big steel beams down. So you don't want to go on reef, and you don't want to go on reef because you've then got more environmental impact. So talking back to Dave's question around environmental impact, it's really interesting. So Star of the South have done their environmental impact report or statement, and it's currently sitting with government for assessment. And then the government will provide commentary back on that to either things that concern them, things that they want included or excluded in the report, and then Star of the South will make that available as a public piece of information, and the government is required to show us as well. But we don't know what's been removed, and maybe that's a little bit cynical of me. It doesn't mean you can't see it. Where interestingly, no one's been given an exploration license down at the Portland sort of site, but there is a preliminary sort of environmental impact report available online on the Australian government website, and it just takes off a section of the area of the main point. I don't know the name. You guys will know it better than I do. Where you cut through the island out to the tuna grounds.
Lawrence Rock.
Yeah, Lawrence Rock.
Cape Grant.
Yeah, so it's literally on the corner there. Matty Hunt will be yelling at the TV at the moment, but so off Cape Grant. It's a really small area.
He watches us. He listens to us in the bath, apparently. He's having a warm bath.
He's having a warm bath.
In a warm bath, and he loves
with a
wind against
Gatorade
tide.
or something. Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah.
Go, Matty. That environmental sort of impact statement and that report was such a small section, given the vast area that they're going to do. So I don't, in my personal opinion, I don't find that appropriate. It also doesn't speak to the migratory species, like to whales and to the bluefin tuna and so forth in any depth whatsoever. It does more speak to the bird life, which these things are giant bird graders potentially. So it does speak to that. But it's really interesting that there's an environmental report down there, as a preliminary report, which is public, but there isn't for the Gippsland region, which is quite interesting. So, but Star of the South apparently will get theirs. You'll see that in time. Certainly, fishing impacts. So, if we talk about pros to fishing impact of the wind farms, it definitely creates a structure for fish to be around. So that area has an absolute ton of structure in it. And also the fishing biodiversity. So if you read some of the reports of what fish species they found, I think they found over 6,000 individual fish species in the mapping and the testing that they did, which was pretty, like, I wouldn't have even been able to count 50, but I'm looking at the old fishing what can you catch booklet. But
we only know the ones that we can eat. That's why.
I think we've got a Rexy book there with
the old McGlashan one.
How many thousands in there? Yeah.
So there's two big pros, but the cons are there is recreational fishing impact by access, and that's really what my interest is in, and I think is the interest of a lot of business people, like say charterers, like Matty Hunt and so forth. But then there's the commercial impact, and a lot of rec guys don't really understand what that means. So the Offshore Energy Infrastructure Act says that it can't unreasonably withhold access to these areas to recreational and commercial fishermen per se. However, if it deems that safety is a concern, then they can reasonably, cordon off areas and so forth. So the question for me is, how bigger areas are cordoned off, and how are you restricted during the construction? Because that's probably where you would have greater the loss of access. And then when they're actually operational and the field of all these things is done, the communication from the Star of the South is that you'll be able to access these areas. You won't be able to anchor because there's obviously cables on the sea floor taking the energy to land. And they don't want you tying up or casting lures amongst them. So there's likely to be a restriction area. Now, what that number of meterage is, it's probably going to be pretty low. So maybe 50
so we
meters.
can't tow a spread through them?
You'll be able to tow a spread through them because they're quite a fair way apart.
What do you think of that, Dave?
Yeah, I don't know, Joe. How much money have you been? You've been slipped under the table by these big wind companies.
No, I haven't had any deals made to me yet.
Yeah. So yes, you can tow a spread through them. They're spaced heavily apart, so you don't get inefficiency of one turbine being behind the other and effectively turning less air. So they're spaced very far apart. And you can tow a spread through there. You can't anchor, but the impact. So from a recreational perspective, okay, if we've got a 50, 100 meter distance around each one, that's probably livable. You could probably, if it's 50 meters, you probably cast towards them. You're not going to tie up against them, but you'll probably pass them maybe. I don't know. It's a new thing for us, right? But the commercial guys, so in Gippsland specifically, there are some pretty impacted people. So there's a big scene netter, or is it scene netter?
I think it's scene.
Scene netter, yeah, scene netter. So that's for bait and pilchards and things like that. And when they wrap the massive net around the bait, it's quite large, they drift. So they wouldn't be able to drift through that area because their boat and their net could infringe.
And obviously that's where all the bait's going to be around these structures. So
potentially, like that's a pretty good reason for them to move in there.
100%.
Yeah, I think that's there.
The mahis will be all over it, Dave.
Well, I think maybe you want to invest in ebb tide tackle and become a top water fisherman, because I reckon these farms might create a top water culture down here in summer. But gill netters will have an issue because you can't stretch the gill nets, that are very, very long. The scallop guys can't drag through there because the cable's on the sea floor. The octopus guys can't lay their octopus traps. And in the Star of the South specific location, so Dave, there's actually a location map of the Gippsland area showing the number of people that could be in one offshore wind area. Yes, if you bring that one up.
While he's getting that up, is there really octopus trapping?
Yeah, there is. Yeah, so I'm told.
I love octopus. We had Jonah Yick on last week from Tasmania, and he was telling us about all of his char grilled octopus recipes from octopus that he actually grabbed that would cross a bit of deserted road in the middle of the night.
Yeah. Geez, okay.
Joe's trying to steer this towards food. Can I just say we've got some fantastic questions coming in live.
Tables?
We'll probably are we thinking we may get to them in one?
Well, there's a good question there from
Yeah.
Tables. So, who's the approved authority for wind farms in the case of Portland? Is it the local government, I imagine LGA, or the Minister of Energy Resources, or DECA? Yeah, it is DECA. So all the infrastructure, the acts are effectively managed by DECA, which is the Department of what is it,
my
Environment
wife
and
works for
Climate.
them. We'll be all right,
Yeah.
everyone.
So they effectively, so under their responsibility is the Infrastructure Acts and the Declaration Acts that say this is how you declare an area. So right now we've got the declared area of Gippsland, which is the first declared area around Australia. There's now proposed areas, which is obviously the Warrnambool to Port Mac area, and there's also one on the north coast, or north to south coast of New South Wales, being the Illawarra area.
And Port Stephens, I saw.
Yeah, Port Stephens, yeah. So it gets up pretty far, and I think they're proposing some at the top of Tassie and also around the west side, the west coast of Western Australia as well. So the minister will, based on wind mapping and the interest, will then propose an area or declare an area, and that's when, with this picture that you've got up on screen now, Dave, these are the proposed companies that are interested in that whole area that's in that Gippsland area. And as you can see, of all of the areas that are east of effectively Wilson's Prom, Star of the South is one of the smaller areas other than Sea Dragon. And so these are company names that you can Google and find their website and understand what they're up to. They'll publicly declare, what they're up to in their stages and so forth. But as Star of the South, the only one out of anything in Australia to have an exploration license per se, and be actively or have done active testing, community consultation, and things like that. So there is about 500 square kilometres, a little bit less. They had to chop a little bit off because it would mean that it would have bridged on reef. So now certainly there's seagrasses and lots of fish in that area, but they think the commercial impact and the recreational impact is low because they're happy once it's constructed, or maybe even during construction, to have recreational fishers out there. But they think there's a bait sea netter who will be impacted, and there's some of these sort of hook and trap guys and octopus guys that may be impacted. So now they can make declarations to say, one, stop it because they don't agree with their livelihood's been impacted, or they can actually claim with validation claim that once these are operational that they get paid compensation. So there is,
which I'm tipping will be a pretty hefty compensation. Which
I don't know, like possibly. I think you've got to prove what your losses are or what your costs are to go fishing to other areas. I imagine it's probably not too dissimilar to those that had their bait licenses out of Port Phillip Bay taken. So yeah, that's probably there.
I suppose there's quite a lot of cynicism around it because, there's been countless examples in the past of companies like this claiming that they're working alongside end users such as recreational fishers, and then that's only the fact, the way it is, until these structures are in place, and then bam, 500, 600 meter exclusion zones, or can't go in the whole area, and too bad, so sad. So I think that's why people are probably quite concerned about it, and maybe rightfully so. But you can't comment accurately on whether or not that's going to be the case. I know that.
Yeah.
So
I think it's fair to say that the older I get, the more cynical you get, because you come to realise that over the term of your life, and I'm 42, in the last 20 years, I've seen a lot of governments say that these things are going to be good, and they're not so good.
Yeah.
So and I think that's probably, we don't know what we don't know. And I think that really puts the onus back onto these companies to be 100% transparent. And I just don't know how you get that with the Victorian government that we have at the moment, because love or hate Dan Andrews, I'm not going to enter a political debate, but there is no doubt that we don't get told everything that goes on under that government. A lot of this is federally managed. So it comes out of federal government to declare the areas and have the acts in place and the legislation. But clearly, there's no doubt that any Victorian government in power, any party, would want this investment to build out those regional centres. And the more people, the more demand you put in there, greater, ability for services, library, schools, hospitals, infrastructure, and jobs. But mind you, you've got to remember that these are very specialised jobs. So you might employ 20 people in program management to, drive boats out and whatever to do maintenance and looking at weather. But a lot of these people are specialised offshore boat engineers and turbine engineers. So it's pretty specialised. So there's no doubt that with that being a new industry, we'll be definitely importing workers on that, I'd say.
Yeah. So We do have plenty of questions
Mm.
trickling through there. I don't know. Do we want to wait and have a large question segment towards the end of the podcast, or do we want to work a few of these in? Because some of them are quite relevant as to what we're
I
talking
think
about now.
that one from Simon, question for Justin, understanding the sector is so the Wilson's Prom sort of and to the east of Port Phillip Bay has been struck out. Not to my reading and my understanding. So I've engaged with the Star of the South fishing liaison manager, Lachlan McKinnon, and some of your viewers might know that name. He actually spent about 15 years as a fish scientist for VFA, and he's done a lot of other contracting into various sectors and stuff like that. Very transparent, happy to be engaged by fishing clubs. They're actually sponsoring, I think, the Port Welsh Pool different fishing comps that are coming up because they actually want to engage with the recreational community and dispel a few of the myths. And he's also very open and honest that there is impact. So the discussion of this commercial impact in his area or that overall area was word from his mouth. You're going to have impact. They can't deny that. And my understanding is that area is still a proposed or declared area, but it doesn't mean that people will want to, there's about 40 different recognized companies around the world that want to invest here in these areas. Doesn't mean that they'll choose those areas or that the exploration will then deem that they're appropriate. So it's likely, but we're not too sure. I think the interesting one was we've got a bit of crossover of information between the South Coast versus the East Coast, is that the turbines are about for Gippsland area are located sort of starting at 10 Ks and then heading out to sea from there, where they were proposing that for the South Coast. And already due to the amount of noise that's come out from the community, Chris Bowen has come out and said, no, we're going to need to mount them 20 Ks out to shore. Now, it gets a lot deeper, a lot quicker on the South Coast compared to Gippy. And that means that mounting them in the pile drive technique is actually probably unviable. And the technology, whilst is there under construction and review for these floating style turbines that are on massive floats and chained to the seabed floor, that technology is not one that's sort of implemented around the world in offshore wind farms around the world at the moment. So it's coming, but it's a lot further way off than the pile drive technique. So that has probably put a bit of a thorn in the thinking and the side. But I think that we're seeing so much noise from the likes of the Port Mac to Warrnambool area. One, because we've got some great fishos down there, great charter operators, and fantastic commercial guys. We've got rock lobster, we've got tuna fishery, the whole works. That does genuinely impact their fishing zones. So it's likely you'll have more impact in that declared area or soon to be declared area than what you will up in, say, maybe the Gippy one. And I'd be happy to correct it on that if Gippy people think that's not the case, but you're likely to have more impact along that coastline. And there's also this discussion about seismic blasting. We previously spoke about that, whether whether seismic blasting needs to be used because of the type of substrate down there. Again, I'm not an engineer, I don't know, but from what I'm told, the answer is no. So, and you've got also, remember, the Portland area is a proposed area, but not an officially declared area. So when they've done community engagement, it's been done really poorly, where a couple of people have turned up and gone, we don't know what we're going to do yet because they're not that far down the path. So where the Star of the South, the Gippy region, they're in exploration, they're much more well advanced. So their discussion with community and people like myself is so much better.
Yep, fair enough. Now, you mentioned briefly international examples of this already happening. What's the feedback been from overseas as to the environmental impacts or the success of these programs?
Yep.
Has there been anything learned from those examples?
Yeah, I think there is, and it's probably one of the hotly contested issues at the moment. It's getting a lot of noise and airplay out of the US to some of the US offshore wind zones that have had new instances of whale beaching. And in talking to Lachlan at the Star of the South, it's his sort of indication that there was one example of whale beaching that was out of the ordinary, and they feel that there was significant elder-based, older matriarchal whales in those pods that had shown that they'd been hit by ships, and maybe that's how the pod was displaced, and those older whales were coming in to die, and the rest beached. I don't know. I think that some of the UK ones are sort of demonstrating that they don't feel there's impact to whale and sea life, because when they're driving in and the noise that it makes, it sort of makes them all steer away. For me, the long-term question is around harmonics and effectively the noise, the sort of the frequency noise. 'Cause we're a big whale migration area. That's how whales, communicate. So, is there harmonic issues? Again, when I presented these questions to Lachlan, he didn't feel that there was enough evidence to suggest that was the case. And, you've got to take him on face value. But, offshore wind farms aren't necessarily that new, but they're not that old in terms of long-term, environmental risk studies. So, yeah, I don't think I can probably answer that 100%, Dave.
I think probably my point of view, obviously I'm not well researched in a lot of the scientific aspects of the project, but one thing I am qualified as is a game fisherman. I spend a lot of time in all these areas mentioned, and I think it's, personally, just speaking my own opinion here, I think it is first of all, as a few guys have mentioned on the comments here, these areas are freaking pristine wilderness, amazing places. To stick these giant windmills sticking out of the ocean there, it's not a good look. It would be nice just to leave these environments as they are. But as in terms of fishing, I mean, I think it's a bit of a misconception to think, oh, there's all this structure going in the water, it's going to be great for fishing. We've already got amazing fisheries through all these areas, and they're there because the bait is migrating through. The tuna and the predatory fish are following. Putting these structures in there, it's going to hold the bait around longer, but it's going to concentrate it all in one area, which is obviously going to draw all the marine life into these potential danger zones. And then everyone's obviously going to be fishing. It's going to be mayhem, really, if we are going to be fishing around in between these structures. It'll completely change the complexion of the fishery. I mean, like, we've seen a little bit of an example with it with some of the oil rig structures we've got off the shore at the moment. I've noticed when I fish around them for tuna, there's much less marine and bird life around them. The bait holds hard up on the structure, and it's very hard to get access to any of the fish because they're so tight on the structure. You can't get to them because of the exclusion zones.
Yeah. How many times have we been out there and we see boats, basically breaching the exclusion zones because of that, Dave?
100%. And
they get sent big fines, don't they?
Well,
yeah, they can be if they're.
I've heard a lot of warnings.
Yeah,
I don't know how many have actually been issued.
Okay, yeah,
but it's enough to scare me away. That's for sure. Yep. But when I have been out to these areas, it's not enjoyable because you don't have the display that you normally would get, where you got the whales, the gannets, the dolphins, the seals. It's much less. It's much less of a visual experience than it otherwise would be.
Yeah, I agree with you, Dave, in the sense that no man can do something to nature and there not be an impact.
Yeah,
and I'm not saying that impact's negative. I'm saying impact. And to your points, it's likely that and if you look at the Star of the South zone, which is their little 500 square kilometre area, they're thinking about 130 just in that area. So when you times that out by the zone,
130 windmills,
wind turbines, maybe 15 to 18 megawatts in their area. Like, you times that out by the size of that area. So there's 500 square kilometers. We've got 15,000 declared. So we're talking thousands of these things, right? So the idea is that there's enough sustainable energy to be, power a lot of Victoria or Southern Victoria without the need of Loy Yang. The benefit is with Loy Yang, and it's not good to pump those emissions into the air. You can turn it on and turn it off, right, as you need. If the wind ain't blowing, these things aren't turning. And it's interesting.
A coal power station.
Yeah, well, that's look, and look. I think to my question is, what's the big issue here? Like, we have to do wind because there's good wind, and it shouldn't impact marine life too much. Yada yada yada. Okay, well, there's impact. Why not just bury a pissant small amount of nuclear waste and have a nuclear power station? It's because Greens go, it's nuclear waste, and the Bart Simpson three-eyed fish, and But does anyone actually know that Australia gets paid to bury nuclear waste currently? throughout the Northern Territory.
Right
and
now.
right now we bury it deep underground. We take other countries'
Fact.
waste.
That's happening
Fact,
right now.
right now it's happening. Right now,
Yep.
we dig bigger holes with diesel trucks and cranes to sell uranium over to India and other nuclear powered countries because they don't mine their own uranium for these things to do. And we've got a good source here. So
What about the images you see getting around of hundreds and thousands of these blades getting buried in random spots inland in Australia? Is that
So
legit?
wind turbine blades you're talking
so
about?
that is sort of legit and sort of not, in the sense that up until more recently they were all fiberglass, carbon fiber, and types of materials that there serves no purpose to spend money cutting them up. They just bury them. They dig holes, and like the Air Force has done that with the old F-111s, the ones they couldn't sell, dug holes at Amberley Base, buried them. It's just easy to dig a hole, right? There is manufacturers of these wind turbines though that are using new complex materials and they can actually recondition them and repurpose them. Like you chop up old roads into new road base, or plastics into park benches and stuff like that. Same sort of thing. And with any new industry, there's not a lot of secondary industry to help these things along, but it will come, but it's often quite delayed. So, like the EV car revolution, I work in the automotive finance sector. EVs are really big. We don't have a lot of second industry to redistribute batteries and stuff like that. So same sort of thing. But to your point, Dave, absolutely, you can't impact the environment. And I think the long-term impact to your exact point is we don't really know. And I don't think they can make calculated guess, but I don't think they really know. But I think there's going to be so many of these things once they're in that it should be concentrated. Like you might drive through 100 different ones over the course of a few hours and not see any bait, and then come across the next patch of 100 and see heaps. Like I don't know.
I just guess that's probably what the concern is. There's a lot of shouldn't be an issue. We're not concerned about it, but it's all guessing, and it's coming from the companies that are obviously, they're going to be at great advantage by these projects going ahead. So it's the information out there, it seems a little bit biased. And I guess everyone just wants what's best for the environment at the end of the day.
But we're as recreational fishers, to add some balance, as recreational fishers, we're not concerned when fishing Victoria Fisheries Authority dumps massive concrete structures in the rip for kingfish. We don't care that they put in fads after the whale migration season for kingfish and mahi off Torquay. They don't mind when we sink an ex-Navy ship for divers to go down and create fish habitat. So, whilst this is a very boring straight pile, one might say it has similar positive benefits to that. But again, I'm not a proponent. I'm not saying that I'm for or against. I actually, with the impact of, and I'm trying to learn game fishing. If I could be as good as you, Dave, or you, mate, Joey, I'd be a happy man. I'm spending more time out there. I'm in a little game fishing community as a part of my club. I'm fishing out there lots. Like look at Peter Fur, great guy, massive sponsor, fan of Port Welsh Pool. If he goes very south, which I imagine he would, sometimes hunting for kingfish, and as he expands his fishing areas, there could be impact. And
is it possible we can get them to install just one of these windmills directly on top of Peter's snapper spot at Port Welsh Pool?
Poor Fergie. No, I think that in and look, we don't know, right? But I think that there's a lot of we instantly think of the worst, and I think that we need to be. The one thing that's really important as a fishing community is we come together with our commercial fisheries guys, and that we're completely supportive of impacts to them as they are supportive of impacts to us, because we can come together. There's often a lot of divisiveness between commercial and recreational fishery, and we should come together as a community. The community should come together and go, what's important to them, and value assess what's important, to their communities, and should they do this? And most importantly is ask questions and make sure it's on the record and learn it. Like, I'm not saying go read 30,000 pages of crap like I have, but you've got to know this, because I think Paul Carter said it best once when people said, we should just change the bag limits on certain fish. And he goes, be really, really careful what you wish for, because once you give it up, you'll never get it back. You'll never get it back. So, we could effectively repurpose Loy Yang into a nuclear energy site, or maybe it needs to be further away in case the thing goes boom, right? But you could do that as a superstructure and not have any of this shit in the ocean, right? But I don't think that people can gather the cost. We're not a nation that builds superstructures and projects well and to budget. So if you look at all the roads that Dan Andrews doing,
how's about the desalination plant that never got turned on?
That's working beautifully.
Yeah. Look, it was built for a period of time. In fairness, though, if we have a drought again, no one will mention that comment.
No, that's true.
But it's costing us the bloody earth. There's no doubt, and they're ordering water when we don't need it because we've got to keep the thing alive. So,
and I've got a question for you as well.
Mm.
Why the ocean for windmills? I fish at that coast all the time, and they're always on the land. Is there any environmental impact of the ones that get installed on the land versus the ocean, or what is the incentive to install them on the ocean versus the land?
Land is a lot harder to come by. That's owned by government, where you can lease that land or put it out. Also, private land. There's big onuses on the land owners if they want to lease it out to have these wind turbines. They could never use that land again, and they might only have certain rental contracts from the government. But ocean it's there. It's vast. It's owned by the Commonwealth government. It's free.
Wow.
It's
first come, first serve.
Well, prevailing winds in the ocean are much stronger and much more efficient than land. So land, you'll get disruption of over hills and all those sorts of things. And Melbourne's an interesting place because we have the Kilmore Gap, which you've got the two sort of great divides on either side, and the wind speeds up and then pumps through Melbourne. That's why it always blows harder in Melbourne than if you go more regionally. And the sea areas, will always have more efficiency in the wind than land. So it from a wind perspective, it makes sense. From a lower cost of acquiring, it makes sense. But then you've got, I don't know what the project cost is, but it's astronomically more.
Yeah, it makes you wonder: is it easier to put it into the ground than it is to put into the ocean?
Don't know. Yeah, fair point.
Yeah. By the way, Justin, understand you're putting across a non-biased, factual view. So thanks very much for that. And Joe and I are just trying to stimulate discussion.
Sure.
Either way. So, So, I think we've covered some really interesting points so far. There was one species of bird that I immediately thought of when we were discussing some of these areas, and we see a lot of it when we go out on these school bluefin tuna and the like, or any sort of fishing offshore in summer. There are acres and acres of shearwater mutton birds that are migrating from Phillip Island and the likes through to Russia every year, and I've seen what they're like. They're in their packs of millions. I can just imagine. I mean, who's to say? But you could consider there would be quite an impact with them flying through some of these, some of these spinning turbines.
There is no doubt that probably what is understood to be the biggest immediate impact to environmental life is bird life. There's no doubt about that, and it doesn't matter the species. If those, so basically these things turn from about 8 meters per second up to about a total of 25 meters per second of wind speed. So we're talking, I think it's 15 knots to about 50 knots in roundabout figures. Okay. And when they're turning, anything that flies through them, they're cheese grating.
I'll tell you what, guys, when I'm not doing fishing or doing my day job, I play music quite often at the Crown Casino in Melbourne. And you've got those huge structures across the Yarra River, the flame towers, and we get to watch the flame towers go off. And I tell you what, I've seen plenty of barbecue seagulls over the 12 odd years I've been working at Crown Casino. So that's flame throwing. Wow. So I dare not say, I reckon these windmills definitely would tear up a few birds.
I think there is no doubt that, given that we know that the deep Gippsland region is a great white nursery, and with that massive EAC that comes down, and I follow they're fishing the 90 Mile Beach page, the shark guys. Like a couple of seasons ago, they were catching not only monster hammerhead, but tiger sharks and bull sharks.
Yeah,
these things are from Queensland, right?
Yep.
If you have a bad day on the birds in this wind farm, and Dave's going to be driving around. Oh, check out that Joey! Look at the feeding frenzy. It's all going to be a bunch of fucking sharks. Like, get out of there! So, it could be a bit of a massacre. Look, I don't know. I think that is a major concern of them. And I don't know how they address that. It's not it's a question I would like to propose to them. I haven't thought of it. In
Bribe
terms,
the mutton birds to fly around
I
them.
don't know whether they use noise or I have no idea. But again, I don't know what the bird life is in the UK because I'm sure they've got a lot of bird life, but it's so freaking cold over there. Maybe they don't have much as us. I don't know.
Maybe they used to. Then they put the turbines in. And
Yeah, maybe they're all over here for a while.
I saw there was actually a dead whale off the 90 Mile this week, and it had sharks chewing on it.
Yeah. I saw that post. Yep. Yeah.
It's a sharky area down there.
Well, back in 1981, Vic Hislop caught the biggest on record great white right off Seal Rock in about 30 meters of water. I think she weighed a casual 2.2 tons.
Yep. Always.
Bet there was no tuna there though.
Oh, you know what? The funny thing is, I've had this debate with many fishos. I can remember Lofty at Complete Angler Ring told me years ago where the Mount Martha beach boxes are. They used to beach long line for 15 to 20 kilo kings, fill up Holden Sandmans with them. And because there was no restrictions back in those days, and decimated the population. Wow. And I think that if you look at our kingfish returning and our school bluefin returning, it's all a fantastic thing. But we've got more and more people buying $300,000 bass straits and so forth that are venturing wider and wider because they're getting sick and tired of the 15 million people on the outer artificial at Carrum at 4 a.m. during snapper season, and I'm one of those people that's pissed off too. but look, it's all good for fishing, right? So yeah,
100%. I guess. Well, do you think we've covered most of the subject on the wind turbines? Do we want to sum up?
What's the next steps in considering and understanding what's actually going on or what's going to happen?
I think what's really important is that local communities and recreational communities that use the recreational fishing, commercial fishing guys come together. Be aware, read documentation, attend and understand these types of things because, there's no reason why Star of the South can't go ahead and build if they do things appropriately, as with the other 40 odd that they're telling us there's about 40 applying or that could propose into the Gippsland region, and maybe anywhere from 5 to 10 might get approved, right? So and then someone's got to start doing it. So they're likely to do it. The Portland one is interesting because there's, as I said, there's probably more commercial fishing impact, and it's a lot different sea substrate area, and it's in its entry stages. And I think that because they're in such entry stage at the moment, they're not doing themselves very good in terms of their presentation to these communities because people are, people can read and they come out and they ask good questions and they don't have an idea because they're not as advanced yet. I think we need to keep that pressure on. There was the meeting that Matty Hunt and the whole community turned up to down at Portland recently, and it was basically one of the companies that sat there and goes, look here's our laptop with our website. And they're actually expecting people to come and talk to us and go, this is our plan, this is what we're doing, this is what I'd expect of Star of the South if they were there in their current position. But it really disengaged the community, and if anything, made it more emotional and not good for them.
It was almost a slap in the face, wasn't it? There was no plan on any discussion to be had. No. It was, here, look at our ads, basically.
Yep.
Same
with the Port Mac one.
The
Port Mac one. The fisherman came out in force and goes, 10th generation, 5th generation rock lobster fisher. We export this over the world. It's a prime quality product, and you're wanting to build right in these zones, and compensation doesn't get that right. That it just doesn't get it. These people don't want compensation. They want to keep doing what they're doing.
Yep.
They want to sustainably harvest, and we want to sustainably fish.
Yep.
And I think that's a really big thing of that balance is what is a fair point of optimization to say we need this infrastructure, it's going ahead. So what can we tolerate? And I think that's the balance that we need to be more informed about.
Yeah, 100%. There's a question here that I can barely manage to read with my IQ. Jess Love, do you know if Star of the South plan on new zone substation to feed into the grid or using existing infrastructure?
That's a really good question. My understanding is
that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, so my understanding is that it's a bit of both. I think they have substations that they build, and I'm not too sure if it's specific to their wind farm, but other ones that they can have them partly submersible on the shoreline, and then also up on the dry stack where these feeds come into. So there absolutely will be infrastructure that needs to occur to take this into the grid, and that will be new, absolutely.
Yeah, Interesting. That's what I was going to say, everyone, by the way. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
That was a really good addition.
I was all over that question as well. So, yeah, I think if that's all the points that we're going to run through on that particular subject, everyone who's listening, I mean, feel free to come back to us via our socials or Justin's socials. Which where can people reach you, by the way, Justin?
Yeah, the Just Your Average Fishos Facebook page for the good old fashioned fishing reports and my
They're
antics.
the best fishing reports going, actually.
Mate. Well, as I said, we don't. I don't know. I just can't deal with old mate holding up a gummy on Port Phillip Bay fishing reports, and not that this is that specific one, but all of them going caught in the water today. It's like, thanks, mate. No worries. Let's give the youngsters a sporting chance at least.
You grab yourself a nice, finished mine, glass of Joe's whiskey from Whiskey Club with the giant ice cube in it that Joe likes to put in there. Yeah. You sit down of an evening and you listen to Just Your Average Fishos report. And
I love those ice cubes, Dave. I love those ice cubes. They're from Kmart. They're cocktail ice cubes, $1 plastic rubber tray. You'll have the best whiskeys ever. Well, the whiskey purists don't have it with ice, but hey, here we are.
I see you have been sucked back into the whiskey, the scheme, Joey, where you're
it is a whiskey scheme because I put it on pause for 3 months, and then all of a sudden nobody remembers when the 3 months is up, and hey, you're getting a new bottle of whiskey tomorrow. It's, well, I guess I'll take it.
So, what's the percentage of crap ones to good ones? For what you pay?
I reckon it's one good one to 2 bad ones.
So you get a couple of Dave's Diesel dirt in a bottle versus, something that's a bit nicer.
Yeah. I don't know, but everyone's got different palates. So
he pays so much, and they write a big wanky explanation on like some aged parchment paper that Joe just thinks that they're all delicious because he convinces himself.
So Joe's mechanic knows when there's a bad one. The car ain't running too good.
100%.
Yeah.
How about we throw to some good old fashioned fishing reports?
We
lighten the mood a little bit.
Love it. Yeah, love talking fishing.
Welcome to the Hookup, where we go around Australia and indeed the world for the freshest fishing reports. I've got no photos to go with this first one, Joey. We've had a few submissions over the last week, so love that. Keep on sending those in, fellas. Brock Ely. Going Brock Ely. That's how we've been instructed to say that last name. Justin, you beg to differ.
But I always called him Brock Eli, but whatever.
No, it's not. We've been the big brother has instructed us differently.
The big brother. Yeah. Who's the small one?
Yes. Yeah. So he said, hey, fellas, hasn't tuned in for the last 4 weeks. That's all right, mate. You haven't missed a whole lot. He's been away in Outback WA. He's got a little report. He says the squid are going off in Smoky Bay. Went to the jetty last night and smashed them. Was catching and releasing in the end. So there you go. We've got some truly national reports coming in this week. And a little side note, I said, that's awesome. Sounds like you're having fun in WA. He says, no, we're not. We're over here doing some gold prospecting, which is becoming quite popular. And they had $16,000 worth of equipment stolen out of the car while over there in WA. How did you feel? That's probably not even including any gold, Joe.
Like somebody else wanted to
detect
some gold.
Yeah.
Brock and Bo would be the 2 nicest fishermen you could ever meet in your life, I'd say. They're such gentlemen, and they go pretty hard at it. And he's actually found a few nuggets. The old Brock with his partner. I'm sorry, Brock, I don't remember her name, but they've got a few nuggets. What a shame.
It's often occurred to me that it's probably a smarter hobby to be involved with, where you're going out and you're literally collecting money. We're literally just pouring money through an engine.
Well, I get the impression that they've just taken the Ballarat gold rush and they've just taken it to the other side of the country. They want to continue the rush. They're not over the gold rush. Yeah. Keep it going. I love it. Do
you think they ever go to that like children's gold collecting thing at Ballarat and
Sovereign Hill
with all their thousands of dollars worth of equipment and just bash the kids out of the way and start detecting it all?
No, I thought the contrary. I reckon he's probably shaving off some of his nugget into the goldfields of Sovereign Hill, so those school kids can have a memorable school excursion.
The goldfields of complete angler. Yeah, that's right.
Very good. Okay, moving on to the next one. We've had a report sent in from the boys from Chasing Fish Oz. Thanks for sending this one in, fellas. Hey, lads, sending in a catch from this week for King Kong, Donkey Kong. I
We've
don't
got
know.
a few
You've
big
got
catches
some,
this week.
yes,
Really
there's
few
some
big ones.
very strong competition this week. Went
That
out
is
from
a horse.
went out from Phillip Island, looking to get some snapper baits for the season and snag this horse. You want to grab this one up on the screen here, Joey?
Oh, whoa.
Oh, jeez.
So it's
Oh,
like
no.
it's a 52 centimeters.
That's a
Actually,
genuine.
I've got a photo of it on the brag mat, so let's go have a look at that. I'll come back to me in a second here,
Yeah,
Joey.
it's all right. We'll certify
We'll
it.
get this one up, and we don't want to lie. I'm going to
No,
zoom in.
No, we will. There we go.
So you can see here, this is where we, for those that don't know, this is where you measure a big squid to. So I'm giving that, that's got to go 52,
You know it means
doesn't it?
business when the plastic mat's
And the
out.
tip is
tip-
on the
yeah,
end.
The tip is on the
I'll
end.
certify that. I'm giving it 52 centimeters, that one. So maybe that is King Kong, because that is probably, I've never caught a squid over 50 centimeters. Have you, Justin?
No, I've made 50, but never over.
Yep.
So, and only did 50 once. So.
I think we should see all the hookup reports before ringing the bell. on
And give
King Kong
everyone a
Donkey
nice
Kong.
joint award,
Yeah.
participation award.
Maybe we
do you
can
think,
do that
Joey?
on the live chat feed. Who gets it? We'll finish this and we'll see who gets it.
Fair enough. All right, and the last entry from our Win Against Tigers comes from Nathan McDermott. Very void on details here, boys, because it's early season snapper, and you know what people are like with their early season snapper. I know that Nathan was in Western Port Bay. He got 2 beautiful snapper last Sunday, biggest going just under 8 kilo. That's all I know.
Hang on, what month are we? We're in August. Like it's
early.
cold.
It's early, yeah. But it is from now on, we'll start to see these captures increase. Not because there's more fish around. Well, there probably is, but mainly because the boat people start to turn their attention to snapper. There's more boats out there looking. So always a good shot at a really good sized snapper at this time of year. And Nathan's done a wonderful job there with a fish of just under 8 kilos. So well done, Nathan. What do you think about that one, Joey? Oh, I probably should get the photo up, shouldn't I?
Oh yeah, it's
Why
a
don't
cracking
we,
fish.
hey,
How
Joey,
unprofessional am I?
Given that's coming, and Joey, given it's coming into snapper season, how about we do this? Because this is this the last live tonight?
It's the last live for a little while. We will still do the odd
Mm.
one here and there, but there'll be some pre-records.
So let's go off
happening
with
in
a
the meantime.
bang. You're about to show a nice photo to enter this in the
If
competition.
Joey ever puts it on the
Yeah, if
screen,
he puts it on
we'll
the
be able to
screen.
see
So
it.
how
yeah.
about we do this? How about I'll sponsor $150 of Reedy's rigs coming into snapper season to give to your winner, and I'll express
What?
postage.
I want to
mark.
read his rigs.
So,
187
bang.
hooks the best.
Yeah, well, I'll go see mate Reedy, and I'll go get $150 worth of stuff, which will be really probably more like $250 because he's very generous.
He is.
And I will express post it out at my cost to thank you for having me on the show, but to give one of these guys a lovely award for snapper
Oh, that's
season.
amazing.
Let's do that.
How good's that?
Look, I don't have any more photos that have come in, so it's out of those two, I reckon. Unless, what about you guys? Have you guys heard much in the way of the world of fishing in the last couple
Justin
of weeks?
has. We were speaking
yeah,
before.
yeah,
What
we're
have you
talking-
heard this week?
Mate, the gummy sharks offshore. You can't look. Chris Cass has done very well. I think Memphis Hurren did all right, but there's been a couple.
Oh,
of
and
friends
sorry
of
to
mine.
butt in there. Congratulations, Memphis Hurren, on the birth
Oh,
of your
the young one.
son, Tide. Well
Yeah.
done.
Appropriately named.
Congratulations.
Yes,
Wow.
there you go.
That's awesome.
He did good job. But yes, a few fishing friends of mine have tackled the offshore gummy sharks in the lovely conditions, but also in the bay, Port Phillip Bay. Don't forget about they say Dead Bay, whatever. It's a good gummy shark zone.
Is
I
that
like my gummy
the
sharks.
deep channels of Port Phillip?
No, you don't need to go that deep, Joey.
Really?
10 meters, 11
That's what you have
meters.
to just belt straight out to that channel, and that's where you get
Yep.
a gummy shark.
Yep. Sit on the side of the channel, get the right tide, chuck a salmon fillet in there, catch.
Oh,
I think it's one gummy to about 12 to 37 rays, but you'll still get one if you can see that tide.
hard to go past the old salmon for the
Mm.
gummy. It's very
Yep.
hard to pass.
I don't know. I love a silver trevally.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, love the silvers. The silver trevally. There's also down south been some pretty good sambos as well.
You were
Salmon.
saying that.
You know who's our good friend Michelle Brittain has been getting stuck into those.
Yep.
And I'm very jealous because I recently drove to Inverloch to try and catch some and caught nothing.
Oh, really?
Did
Yeah.
you end up actually going there?
That's a long
Oh,
way.
I
Did
thought
you know
we
I
just
went to
talked
Inverloch?
about it.
Yeah, because Joey kept crapping on about it. I'm like, I need to film something other than tuna. I know what's a guarantee. Salmon.
You didn't have Lockie on board.
Ah,
you didn't
the
have your
man.
good luck charm.
He's too expensive.
Oh, really? Really?
How big are these salmon, Justin, in Port Phillip?
I've heard that we're cracking easily a 3 kilo mark.
Oh, bullshit.
I'm dead serious.
That's the
Stop.
3 kilo
That's it.
salmon's like a freaking blackback
Mate,
WA
on-
style one.
On 15 pound like here with a 10 pound leader, mate, it would give you an absolute spanking.
That's it. We're going.
Starlo's going to be there with his fly rod whipping it around
with his Alvy.
in an absolute frenzy trying to upgrade his record, I reckon, Joey. But yeah. Hey, I forgot one very meritorious capture, by the way, this week. We had the boys, the serial offenders, on a boat called Impulse, fishing out of the eastern entrance of Western Port this week.
Wow. What day was this?
This was on last Sunday. So about a gazillion boats out there.
Yeah,
I'm
perfect.
sure.
Gazillion boat day, Sundays.
And the boys have managed to come up with the goods, but they went one up that they put a 15 kilo setup out. And we had Paul Irvine on the rod. And this fish came in and was officially weighed because the boys were looking at a possible world record here, and it fell just short. It was 112.2 kilo. So I think the current world record is also out of either Western Port or Port Phillip.
Dave, question, do you have to be registered to a game fishing club to claim a world record?
I believe you do.
You do.
Yeah.
You must be affiliated. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, like, is that prior to catching or?
Yes. Yes.
No, like, I mean, like, are they going to catch it and go, oh, you better join a club to claim that record?
My understanding is you need to be a paid up affiliate or a paid up GFA member of a GFA, game fishing club. So
if you want a trophy in fishing, you got to join a fishing club.
Well, so Mitcham Anglers, we don't have a lot of huge amount of game fishing, but we're all trying to learn our thing. We are affiliated game fishing club.
Yeah. There's not much ocean in Mitcham.
No, not in Mitcham. Not in Warrandyte. It's a long way. I don't have the bearing issues that you guys have in trailers. You're so close to the water. Mine dry out. But, I waste $200 if you'll get there.
Yeah. Joey, the current world record 15 kilo once was held by our good mate Jonah Yick. Did you know that, Joe?
Oh, really? Was he a heavyweight champion of the world?
He was very briefly
holding the gold
at 107 kilos. And he was usurped by Clint Adlington, another local Crib Pointian, Joey.
Wow.
With a fish of, I think it was 117. I hope that's right. But anyway, that is still standing, still champion of the world, and still
heavyweight world champion.
That is still holding, although got a little bit of a scare last weekend when the boys came in with that fish. So
I've been out in Port Phillip Bay, and the Impulse crew have been out of Sorrento. They have pushed that very, very hard. They've given it a good nudge.
Oh, the boys, they're mad.
They're absolutely mad. Goldie, absolutely mad. I speak to the Don every now and then, and he loves his fishing.
I know fishing for the swords, they were doing stupid kilometers going out of lakes and end up off Malakuta and crazy. So another big bluefin also coming in. Got to give that one a mention. 80 kilo a few days ago as well. So Les and Frank. So well done on that fish. I know Frank got one when we were out last time, Joey, when we managed to lose one.
Yeah.
So
that was one of the ones on the radio. But Dave, you are the local barrel marshal. I'm just going to give you that title. You're the barrel marshal. It was quite a good day Tuesday. Did you hear of many caught? Where are we? On Tuesday when it was quite calm.
Tuesday?
Yeah.
Oh, not really. Not off the top of my head, Joe. Sorry.
That's all right.
Sorry to be anticlimactical for you.
That's okay.
But I can tell you that then it's not going off out there. They're somewhere. There's still fish trickling through. If you're out there trolling around in the right life, you're a fair chance, but they're not stacked up. But yeah, one in a lot of boats seems to be getting a hook up. But credit where credit's due for the lads on Impulse, because I think that's their third or fourth out of here this year, and they're doing it very consistently. So something to be said for that, Joseph.
Good. That's a good.
But I was going to go on Sunday, Joe, and I was driving home, and fuel, I noted, went up about 30 cents a litre.
Yeah, $2.24. I told you we're gonna go get the kayaks and go to Devil Bend Reservoir. We're gonna be petrol-less.
I did some very quick calculations, worked out it would take about $450 to fill up my boat tank, and decided there was projects at home that needed attending to. and I'd be doing that instead.
Better to do a Sunday roast, Davey, than better to do food than fish, I would say.
Food never broke my heart, Joe. Would you agree with that one? I know you'd agree with that one. Just while I'm thinking about it, as I've just been scrolling through fishing online, our local tackle store, our mate Adam Ring's doing a Bream talk on the 16th of August at Hastings Boat Ramp
Look at
at the Western Port Angling Club.
Ringsy.
Yeah. So
That looks like a fish right behind us. Have a look.
That looks like a decent sized bream in that picture too.
Looks a bit brimmy.
That'd be 40 centimeters, surely.
And you've been on the Bream lately.
I have, so did a lot of growing up in Meetung with the grandparents, and so I took my eldest son on a Mitcham Angling Club. We have a perpetual trip for one of the life members down to the Nicholson River. We stayed at the Nicholson Hotel, which I have to say was fantastic, gents. It was cheap. The facilities were great. The bistro is great. There's a general store. You can get all your breakfast items.
They do a good pub meal.
They do a brilliant pub meal. Very good value.
What'd you have? Because I'm into food.
So the first night, Jake and I had the monster Scotch fillet. It was like 400 grams. It was an absolute whopper with salad and everything. And the second night, I had the calamari, and they do.
Mate, how many grams is a monster Scotch?
400. It was a good one.
Yeah,
it was.
Was it tender? Scotches should have, like, a good Scotch fill should have marbling, and it should be really tender and easy to cut. Should be able to cut it with a butter knife.
Not quite. It was like $35. So on the scale of expensive scotches, it wasn't up there. But they also have a very like half Asian menu. Maybe the chef's an Asian bloke, but
a bit of Asian fusion.
Bit of fusion. His version.
That's what you call Aussie Asian.
Yeah, his version of the chicken chow mein was bloody unreal. And the egg and bacon roll in the morning at the general store was fantastic. But
you know what they say? Wakey, wakey, eggs and bakey.
Absolutely. I agree with that. And they made us sandwiches to take out the boat. And we, so Bass Strait Game Fishing Tackle, Frank down there said, you got to get on these live sandworm that he sells. One of the only guys to sell live boat. So I bought multiple tubs of that, and we smashed the Bream. I've never had fishing so good in my life. So the biggest we caught across that weekend, Jake and I got.
How do you hook up a sandworm? I might sound like a really basic question.
No, it's
think
so
about
simple.
As a kid.
And I had a $40, $50 Crucius 1 to 3 kilo nibble tip rod.
Mm-hmm.
A Shimano Sienna, kept it cheap.
Oh yeah.
With 6-pound fluorocarbon straight through to the hook with a little bean sinker and a size 2 worm hook.
Oh, the Bream won't see that line at all.
And we smashed them. A lot of small fish, but the biggest across our days down there was 42, which Jake and I caught.
You would have been bashed for bait fishing for Bream, were you, by all the purists?
Well, I think actually, you know what, you're right, because on the Saturday night, there's a new guy, Ronnie, who's in our club, and he's one of the yak guys, and he's a lovely, lovely man, and he didn't say a word all night. We're like, how did you go today? He goes, oh, okay. It's like, what did you do? He goes, I see the moorings directly opposite the rooms. He goes, I dropped a plackie down and donged a 45. and Chris, another member, and I had caught a 42 each, and we're going at it pretty hard, thinking how good we were. And Ron came out very.
Why do they use a bean sinker for Bream? Because I remember back in the day, I bought a Target tackle box, and it was like bean sinkers. Like,
when I say a bean, it's like a pea. It's type of the pea, not the actual
pea.
bean shape, but pea, like double zero, right?
Cool.
And that's just sliding up and down. And in winter, they're fishing off the bottom, so the depth of the Nico is only about 4 meters or something. So cast into the middle, and we'll hook you up. And live soft shell. It's like a local pippy, but very soft. If you press it, you'll crush it. The big Bream love them. And you literally just feed that onto your worm hook through the thin part of the shell, and they don't get hit as much as the worm. You get very big Bream on soft shell.
Oh, was it anyone chucking a muss at the pylons there?
Well, we did the soft shell, and they would do okay. They resulted in all the bigger fish, but Frank told me to buy these fresh live spider crabs, and it caught one okay fish. I think it was about 35, but bought 2 tubs of spider crabs and ended up letting them all go. So
nice. Yeah, I know nothing about Bream, but I'm pretending to be a good job of understanding it.
Well, you've talked
go down to the Nico and just grab a tinny. Grab your tinny.
I probably should.
We should do that. We should do a wind against tide adventure.
Definitely. Joe's tinny. Do you know Joey's had that tinny and the new engine for probably 2 years now? He goes,
that's turning it up a bit.
He goes to be apparently it's due for a service, Dave. I said, 100 hours. It's taken a while. He goes,
By time.
no, the first one. I go, what? 20-hour
20.
service? He goes, yeah, it must be that one. I'm like, you're joking. It hasn't done 20 hours yet.
Yeah. Unlike yourself, Dave, I rang it. I booked it in for a service with Mark Stav at JV Marine, unlike yourself, there'll be no blood on his hands because it's well within its servicing.
I actually did a pre-book on this occasion. I've got mine booked in next month. Yeah,
you're really?
Pre-booked.
Yeah. Hey, I just want to do a really quick shout out to our great mate Dave Jurisic from Bass Strait Lures because he has sent us out a couple of prototypes lately, one of which is attached to a big barrel bluefin right now. He's already replaced it for us, so thanks for that. And I said to him, my little boy Sam's been grabbing him and taking off with him, and he loves them. So he said, I'll leave it with me. And he sent me out a brand new lure, arrived in the post yesterday. I've got an unboxing video for you, Joey, because
there we go.
I'll chuck it on for you. But yeah.
Oh, look at Sammy.
His own little lure.
And Kelly, the
dog,
greyhound is
the hound. He goes, get out of the way, dog.
He said, get out of the way.
This is my lure. So this is live reactions to Sammy unboxing his own lure.
Got that tongue out.
And I can only hope that he's going to let me borrow that one because it looks very good. So thanks, Dave, very much for sending that one through. It's got all the wiggles are in the actual head of the lure. It's very cool looking piece of gear. So thanks heaps for that, Dave.
Zoom in on that for us if
awesome
you
is
can,
that?
Davey.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Check out that. It's got
Actually,
the wiggles on.
It's the wiggles.
And it's got the good version of the wiggles, might I add. On the other side, it's got the Emma wiggle version, not this current garbage that they're.
Do you know that now that you've promoted this, he will get 1,000 orders for these things?
I hope he does.
Because every dad's going to go, shit, that's how I get him into fishing and get to buy fishing gear for my son at Christmas and birthdays.
I said to my wife, do you think he'll care if I borrow it? She said, I think it might actually bring you some good luck because you've had some bad luck lately. So I've got the go-ahead. I'll be towing the Sammy lure.
Who are we going to give away the Ready's Rig prize to, Dave?
Okay, so recapping, we've got the 8-kilo snapper, 52 centimeter squid, near on world record bluefin.
You're going to have to ring the bell.
You're not leaving it up to me. I think the guest judge has to pick it, don't they? Justin.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Or how about we vote?
Oh, you can do the live chat.
How about we vote? Is that fair? A vote?
A vote?
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to say the squid. 52 centimeter hood.
52 and ring the bell.
Let's use that one because that's going to be bait for the snapper on the Ready's rigs.
Oh, 2 out of 3. We don't need your opinion, Joe.
Okay, that's all right. That's it. Do we get the? I think we should get the photo back up.
That'd be.
We have to certify it.
That'd be professional.
We have to certify
Yeah,
it.
let's go the squid. Send your details to Dave, and
there we go.
Give me a week, and you'll have a nice, massive thing of.
Hopefully it will come via us, and we can siphon some of the hooks.
There we go. Here it comes.
King Kong, Donkey Kong match. Look.
That is a King Kong, Donkey Kong. That's a submarine, as Mr. Wing would say. Isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's an aircraft carrier.
Yeah, aircraft carrier. That's the one.
Yeah.
And good to see an old-fashioned squid hold up, by the way. None of this reverse angled squid holding. You know what I mean? Where they face the head to the camera.
And it's got great colour in it. She ain't washed out like Casper the Ghost. So.
Absolutely. Wonderful. So, how good's that for a prize? Love it.
Yeah,
we should have advertised that before the show. We would have got it.
I just made it up. Let's hey, come on.
Justin's putting $150 up every week.
Not me.
Dave, do we have any more King Kong, Donkey Kong hoodies?
We do have a couple left.
Will we have a large or XL?
I don't know, Joey. Is someone else one? Or are you giving one away?
No, I like mine. Sorry. I'm not giving it to anyone.
But why are you asking me? You're going to buy one?
Oh, well, I think we have something to sell. But
no, we've got a few left. Yeah, not many, but we're about to do a hoodie restock in time for the boat show this year. We're just working on a new design, which is proving quite difficult. Trying to work out which direction to go with it. After the success of King Kong, Donkey Kong hoodies, it's very hard to know.
I think the success of King Kong, Donkey Kong should continue. It's brilliant.
Yep.
It should. I'd love to become a member of the King Kong Donkey Kong Club. Most of my captures lately have been pretty ordinary, but
Yeah.
I reckon it should bring me good luck.
Absolutely.
Shouldn't it, Joey?
It will.
All right, just get one that's a size 10 for me. And
You've had a,
We
a
can do
few
that.
kings in the boat. Yeah, I've seen you. Yeah, I remember back in the
yeah,
boy
back in
12
the day.
days.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
no.
yeah.
That one was out offshore with Guano. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, paid my hard earned, and just with luck would have it got a king that day. That was
well, you need
10.1. Yep.
So
good.
well done. So the winners of the competition, and a few questions to get through, Joey.
Yes, we do.
We're going to rip through them because we've gone on a bit tonight,
they're
and
lovely,
then we're
mate.
going to wrap up for the evening. But I'm having such fun. I don't want it to end. So yeah, I may pick and choose a couple here. One from TB2F. Snapper season is only weeks away. Are we all looking forward to it? I think that'd be a resounding yes, wouldn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Make sure your boat's serviced, or else the blood will be on the mechanic's hands.
And if you're chewing up 2 ramps at Paddo, you'll get a broken nose. Yeah.
100%. No, I'm very keen. I can't wait to actually eat some fish. It's been so long.
Yeah, snapper
apart from bluefin.
nuggets.
Yeah, snapper nuggets.
Yeah, yum.
I've developed a lot of Justin. You called bluefin cat food by the way,
Yep.
but I've got some brilliant recipes. I'll hand over to you the next time
mate.
you've got some.
All right.
There's a question from Kim wants to know what happens if he tangles his stick bait on the blades of the wind turbines. Well, I'm probably going to get spooled there, Kim. I don't think there's.
I don't think it's going to hook it.
No,
somehow.
that'd be a fair cast.
It would be a fair
No,
cast.
I reckon what's going to happen, it's going to go.
Chris Cassar is mentioning that it's not just Rex that are getting impacted by the wind turbines because he is a dirty commercial fisherman.
I think that we did say the commercials are probably more impacted. There's no doubt, Casa. So yep.
Fluorocarbon leader versus mono leader in general. Opinions?
Oh, the Bream love it.
Nah,
opinions?
I only did fluorocarbon on the Bream because the ABT champions all run fluorocarbon straight through.
Okay.
But however, I'm a tech tackle freak, and you'll see more of that on Just Your Average Fishos coming up to be announced. Never fluorocarbon, always mono.
Okay, fair enough.
Is my opinion.
Yeah, fair enough. Very good abrasive resistance on fluoro. I don't mind using it when I'm live baiting for large tunas. So the last big one we caught at Port Mac was on 120-pound fluorocarbon. And I do feel I can fish lighter with fluorocarbon because it's got that harder outer coating. Maybe I'm wrong, but it seems to be working for me. I do run normal mono on all my other stuff, though, Justin. I will agree.
Do you run a copolymer, though? Like copolymer, like the old Jinkai Plus? It's not really mono. It's not fluorocarbon?
On my ordinary lure trolling setups or on...
would you use that in that instance for tuna?
No, I find the Jinkai Plus to be quite soft still, personally. I don't mind a supple mono leader for most instances. So my normal troll, like if I'm fishing for big tuna, it's 200-pound moi moi I run. And then some of the lighter tackle stuff I'll use fluoro, but I don't know. The jury's out. Maybe it's just what you have confidence in but
use what works.
That's it, 100%. Joey, you got an opinion on that one?
No.
Yeah, good stuff.
You're the tackle man.
Some questions about the local barrels. Still ticking along. Definitely worth getting out
nipping.
there. Yeah, 100%.
Nipping.
Look for the lead up to the next full moon. That would be my tip.
There's a tip.
Yeah, that is a hot tip.
We're in a little bit of a lull. We've had some calm weather, a lot of boat traffic. The fish have probably moved on a little bit. There's not a lot of bait out there at the moment, so they're not holding in one area a lot. They're moving about. So
not on meatballs.
No, they're not. There's small bait balls getting pushed around by the dolphins and the tuna. It's hard to keep up with them. So the fish are spread. So I'd be looking around some of the larger structure offshore reefs and wind turbines to fish around. Some of the structure that's going to be holding a significant amount of bait that's going to concentrate the fish in that area. And lead up to the next full moon, especially if there's a bit of a blow on the back end of that wind, I'd be getting out there and having a look. But, don't let that stop you. Anytime you're out there with lures in the water, you're a chance. So, that pretty much sums up the local barrels. Western Port Snapper reports. We've had a few of them already.
Oh, you can give us like a general report, Dave. If you were chasing a winter snapper in Western Port right now, where would you go?
I'd be fishing the Tenby Point region, Joey. There you go. One of my favourite areas for this time of year.
Bolton's, Bouches.
Bolton, Bouches. The Lysarts area can be good this time of year.
Really?
Spit Point, Joey. Yeah, all those good areas.
Got to go out and do it in shit conditions and just brave the conditions, really.
Yep.
Yeah.
Time on water.
Time on water.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, we saw there's a couple of good fish in the reports. Your mate Reedy's he's been getting a few, hasn't he?
I think so. I haven't spoken to him about it too much, and he generally goes a bit quiet this year because he's working
sneaking.
it out. He's sneaking.
He's sleuthing. I've driven past him on his way to Coronella a couple of times lately.
I think he's preparing. Like he's military precision. This guy. So, yeah, it'll be on his channel. He'll let everyone know. Don't worry.
5-rod barrel spread. What distances should my lures be in meters? It's everyone has their own opinion. One thing I would say is your boat is one of your best teasers. So don't be afraid to run your lures close to the boat. Not necessary to have your shotgun 700 miles out the back of the boat for other boats to run over. Sorry. So, obviously where you got to pick distances that are going to suit the lures that you're towing. So I like to run a big cut face lure in close because they track straight. They don't mind the little bit of disturbance from the prop wash. And something like a cut face slant head on the riggers out in some clean water doing their thing, and then maybe a bullet head on a spreader bar at shotgun. But yeah, none of them particularly far out for me. Maybe on a really smooth day where there's a lot of boat traffic and the fish are maybe a bit finicky, I'll experiment dropping the lures back. But yeah, it's really whatever works for you. To be honest, it's a question. Yeah, it's a hard question really. It's what suits the lures you're towing on the day and your boat and yourself. Yeah. So I'm going with that one. Here's a good one, Joe. Would those fish in the tank behind us be better slab bait or cross-cut chunks for gummies?
I still want to eat my fish.
They look delicious.
No, you crazy Dutch bastard.
They're pretty rassy looking. They're pretty good.
Oh,
that big balloon one that just was saying hi there just then. I reckon a 9-0 circle in the front of his gob will get a nice big Gary. One of Dave's favourite.
How's the fillets on them? They've got nice fillets on them, I reckon.
Whole pan fried there, Dave?
Yeah. You know what I do? I do them like a crispy skin Asian style.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. No, that sounds good. I'm going to finish with one last question. Bo Yearly. So this is one of last week's questions, by the way. We didn't get to go. We've run through some of them. Bo Yearly's asked, how is your love life going, Joey? He wants an update. Sorry, Joe.
It's ongoing. That's how I'm going to
It's about as active as your titty from the sounds of it, mate.
It needs a service.
Drop some lube. Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah. Very good.
That's why my injectors changed. Oh,
yeah. We're waiting on the perfect fishing lady who watches Winning Against Tide to reach out to Joey. So please do that.
That's all right.
Please do that.
Know where to find me. At Joey Fernand Instagram.
He's the catch of a lifetime. He really is. This man.
It's baby face.
He's beautiful.
Yeah.
He's a rock star by night, real estate agent by day, and a fisherman in his leisure time.
Yeah.
And a podcaster.
That's it. I don't know how I fit it all in, but I just find a way.
If I wasn't married, Joey, I tell you what.
I think that's the point.
Absolutely.
There's no love life. You got all the time in the world. Well done.
Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
So that wraps us up on the questions. Ripping podcast tonight, boys. Justin, thank you so much for coming aboard. We'll definitely get you on again down the track. If you want to give your socials a bit of a plug so people can get a hold of you.
You can find us at Just Your Average Fishos on Facebook or Just Your Average Fishos on YouTube, but mainly we communicate our fishing reports and antics via Facebook. A whole lot of stuff about to come on there if the good old Baron wants to produce some stuff, but he's pretty busy, and we love the work that he does, but thank you. Yeah.
Good on you, Justin.
Thanks, Justin.
Me.
Pretty good three-way, hey? What do you reckon, Dave?
Works well.
Our first three-way in a while, Joey. And
well done.
It was quite enjoyable.
It's awkward being the double adapter, boys.
You've done it well. No, thank you for bringing a balance for you to the debate or the subject. Joe and I just really didn't have any knowledge in the field.
Let's catch up on it again when we know some more.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing.
That's
like
what
we
should do.
really are. What we're waiting on information basically is where we're at. That's how I would sum up.
We could even call Lachlan from Star of the South, the fishing guy. He would love to say hello. And look, again, he works for them, but he has, again, a big fishing background. I reckon we could do some live fire questions off the chat. That would be pretty intense for him and probably pretty discovery.
Intense for him.
Intense for him. No, he's pretty reasonable. So, yeah. I think that's probably something we could do.
Yeah, 100%. Thanks for coming aboard. We're going to say good night to everyone. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It's been a while since I've asked you all to do that. So if you haven't, make sure you do. And thanks for following us. We appreciate it. We love you all. And we'll catch up with you in the coming weeks. So thank you, Joey. Thank you, Justin. And good night all.